The formation stood at attention as Gunnery Sergeant Morris prepared to announce the top performer from 8 weeks of advanced infantry training. Corporal Maya Chun kept her eyes forward, knowing what was coming. Her twin sister, Riley, stood 3 positions to her left. They had broken every record in this training cycle. What the 200 Marines in this formation did not know was that 6 weeks ago, Staff Sergeant Vaughn had sworn he would destroy both their careers before graduation. He had failed. Now came the reckoning. Morris cleared his throat, the sound cutting across the parade deck at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. The North Carolina sun beat down on dress uniforms and polished boots. Maya felt sweat trace down her spine, but kept her face empty of expression. She had learned that skill years before the Corps ever taught her. The gunnery sergeant held a single sheet of paper. Corporal Chun and Corporal Chun, front and center. Maya moved in perfect sync with Riley. They always had. For minutes separated their births. 18 years of hardship bound them tighter than any blood relation had a right to expect. They halted before Morris with identical precision. The highest combined scores in marksmanship, physical fitness, tactical operations, and leadership evaluations in the history of this training company belonged to these 2 Marines. Morris spoke without emotion, but his eyes held something close to respect. Staff Sergeant Vaughn, present the commendations. Maya saw her sister's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. Vaughn stepped forward from his position in the instructor line. His face was a mask of professional courtesy, but Maya knew the rage behind it. She had seen it directed at her for 2 months straight. Vaughn pinned the commendation ribbon on Maya's uniform first. His voice was parade ground perfect. Outstanding performance, Corporal Chun. He moved to Riley. The same words, the same mechanical motion. But Maya caught the way his hand trembled slightly, the way his eyes promised this was not finished. The formation was dismissed. Marines scattered toward liberty and weekend plans. Maya and Riley walked in silence toward the barracks, their matching strides drawing looks from the junior Marines. Most of the Corps had gotten used to seeing the Chun twins together. Some still found it unnerving how they seemed to share thoughts without speaking. Before they reached the entrance, a voice called out, "Corporals Chun." They turned as one. Lieutenant Fisher approached, his expression unreadable. Behind him, Staff Sergeant Vaughn followed at a distance. "My office. All of you. 10 minutes." Maya exchanged a glance with Riley. Her sister's dark eyes reflected the same calculation. This was it. Whatever Vaughn had planned for his final move, it was happening now. They changed quickly, replacing dress uniforms with camouflage utilities. Riley spoke for the first time since the formation. "He's going to try something." Maya nodded, checking her uniform for any detail out of place. Vaughn would use anything as ammunition. He has been trying for weeks. "We are still here." Riley sat on a rack, hands clasped between her knees. Maya recognized the posture. Her twin was thinking about the night they turned 18. The night their stepfather told them to get out and never come back. The night they learned what it meant to have nothing but each other. Before we continue with Maya and Riley's story, drop a comment and let us know what state you are watching from. Maybe you have seen the strength of military families in your community. Maya crossed to Riley's bunk and sat beside her. "Remember what we promised that night?" Riley looked up. "We survive together. We fight together. And we never let anyone break us apart." Maya finished. "Whatever he wants, the answer is no." They walked to the company headquarters building together. The passageways were empty in the afternoon lull. Most Marines were either on liberty or sleeping off the stress of graduation week. The administrative office door stood open. Lieutenant Fisher sat behind his desk. Staff Sergeant Vaughn stood at parade rest to the left. The lieutenant gestured to the chairs. "Seat." Maya sat. Riley remained standing for half a second longer, a small act of defiance, before taking her seat. Vaughn's jaw clenched. Fisher opened a folder. "I will get straight to the point. Staff Sergeant Vaughn has submitted a request that you two be assigned to separate units upon completion of this training cycle." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She kept her face neutral through pure force of will. Beside her, Riley went rigid. Vaughn stepped forward. "Sir, if I may explain my reasoning. His voice was calm, professional, deadly. In my 15 years of infantry experience, I have seen countless examples of personal relationships compromising combat effectiveness. The bond between siblings, particularly twins, creates an emotional liability that endangers not just themselves, but every Marine in their unit. In a combat scenario, their first instinct will be to protect each other rather than complete the mission. This is not about their capabilities, which are indeed exceptional. This is about maintaining unit cohesion and operational effectiveness. Maya felt Riley start to rise from her chair. She put her hand on her sister's arm, a gentle pressure that said, "Wait. Let him finish." Fisher looked at the folder, then at the sisters. "Do you have a response to this assessment?" Maya spoke carefully. "Sir, with all due respect to the staff sergeant's experience, we have spent 8 weeks proving that our relationship enhances our effectiveness rather than diminishing it. Every training evolution we have completed together has resulted in mission success. Every scenario where we operated independently has shown identical tactical decision-making. We do not need to communicate to coordinate because we think the same way. That is not a liability. That is an asset." Vaughn's face darkened. "Corporal, you cannot possibly guarantee that in actual combat your emotions would not override your training." Riley spoke for the first time, her voice level and cold. "Staff Sergeant, we have been in actual combat since we were 18 years old. Just not the kind the Marine Corps recognizes." Fisher raised an eyebrow. "Explain, Corporal." Maya shot Riley a warning look, but her sister continued. "Sir, the day we turned 18, we were kicked out of our home with nothing. No money, no family, nowhere to go. We spent 6 months living on the streets of Los Angeles before we could save enough to get an apartment. We had been attacked, threatened, starved, and left for dead. We survived because we protected each other and trusted each other completely. The skills we learned keeping each other alive in that environment translate directly to combat operations. We do not panic. We do not freeze. We do not abandon each other. And we do not fail." The office fell silent. Fisher studied them both with new attention. Vaughn's hands balled into fists behind his back. The lieutenant closed the folder. "Staff Sergeant Vaughn, I appreciate your concern for unit cohesion. However, I am denying your request. These Marines have earned their place in this Corps through exceptional performance. Unless you can provide concrete evidence that their relationship has compromised a training evolution, I see no reason to separate proven performers." Dismissed. Vaughn's face went white, then red. "Sir, I must protest this decision. Your protest is noted." Dismissed, Staff Sergeant. Vaughn executed a perfect about-face and marched from the office. The door closed with excessive force. Fisher waited until his footsteps faded. He looked at the sisters with something approaching sympathy. "I need you both to understand something. Vaughn is not wrong about the challenges you will face. The Corps is slowly accepting women in combat roles, but slowly is the operative word. You will encounter resistance. You will be tested beyond what male Marines face, and you will be watched for any sign of weakness." His denial was based on policy and your performance record, but that does not mean his concerns are baseless. Maya stood, Riley following her lead. "Sir, we understand. We have been tested our entire lives. We are still here." Fisher nodded. "I believe you are. But watch your backs. Vaughn does not accept failure well, and you just handed him a very public one. He will be looking for any excuse to prove his assessment correct." They left the office and walked across the base in silence. The evening air had cooled slightly. Marines moved between buildings, heading to the Chow Hall or the PX. Normal life for people who had never wondered where their next meal would come from. Riley spoke quietly. "He's going to come after us." Maya kept walking. "Let him try. We have survived worse than Derek Vaughn." But as they approached their barracks, Maya saw Vaughn watching them from the entrance to the company office. His expression promised consequences. This was not over. The real fight was just beginning. The next morning arrived with the harsh metallic clang of a trash can hitting the barracks floor. Maya jerked awake, muscle memory bringing her upright before her mind fully processed the sound. Around the squad bay, other Marines stirred and cursed. Staff Sergeant Vaughn stood in the doorway, his face expressionless. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Since some of you seem to believe you have earned special privileges, I thought a reminder of basic standards might be in order. Gear inspection in 30 minutes. Full pack combat load. Anyone fails, the entire platoon runs the O course in flak and Kevlar." He turned and left. The barracks exploded in groans and frantic movement. Maya swung her legs off the rack and found Riley already lacing her boots 3 bunks down. Their eyes met across the squad bay. Message received. They passed the inspection. Every Marine in the platoon did. Vaughn walked through the ranks with a tactical flashlight, examining every piece of equipment with the intensity of a man searching for explosives. When he reached the Chun twins, he spent 5 full minutes on each pack. He found nothing out of place. The platoon was dismissed for morning chow. As the other Marines filed out, Vaughn called back. "Corporals Chun." A moment. Maya and Riley approached. Vaughn waited until the last boot steps faded down a passageway. His voice dropped low, almost conversational. "You think Lieutenant Fisher's decision changes anything? You think one officer's misguided faith in your abilities makes you bulletproof? Let me explain how this works. I have been molding Marines for 15 years. I know what breaks people. I know what separates the ones who talk about being warriors from the ones who actually are. And I know, without question, that when the bullets start flying and someone you love is bleeding out in front of you, all that training disappears. You become animals protecting pack, not Marines completing missions." Riley's hands clenched at her sides. Maya kept her voice level. "Staff Sergeant, we respectfully disagree with your assessment." Vaughn smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Of course you do, because you have never actually been there. Street fights and homeless shelters are not combat, Corporal. They are survival. Combat requires you to let your sister die if the mission demands it. Can you do that? Can she?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest. She had asked herself the same question 1,000 times since joining the Corps. Vaughn continued, "I have requested a meeting with the battalion commander. I'm going to recommend, in the strongest possible terms, that you be separated for the good of this unit and your own safety. Lieutenant Fisher can protest all he wants. The colonel will see reason." He walked away, leaving them standing in the empty barracks. Riley turned to Maya, her voice shaking with fury. "He cannot do this." Maya watched Vaughn's back disappear down the passageway. He just did. They skipped breakfast and walked to the base perimeter fence. It was a spot they had found during the first week of training, a place where the manicured grass met wild brush and the Atlantic humidity hung thick enough to taste. Maya sat on the ground, her back against the chain link. Riley paced. "Do you remember the pact we made?" Riley asked. Maya looked up at her sister. "The night we got kicked out." Riley stopped pacing. "We were sitting in that bus station. 2 in the morning. We had $17 between us and nowhere to go. You said we would never be separated, no matter what happened, no matter who tried." Maya remembered. She remembered the terror of being 18 and homeless. The way the fluorescent lights in that bus station had made everything look sick and desperate. The smell of industrial cleaner and human misery. The understanding that they had only each other in the entire world. "A minute," Maya said. Riley sat beside her. "Then we fight this. We fight Vaughn. We fight the colonel if we have to. We prove he is wrong. How do we prove something that has not happened yet? How do we prove we would not hesitate in combat when we have never been in actual combat?" Riley was quiet for a long moment. "We show them what we have already survived." Maya turned to her sister. "We told Fisher. He approved us anyway." Riley shook her head. "We told him the sanitized version. We told him we were homeless. We did not tell him about the men who tried to drag you into that alley behind the shelter. We did not tell him about the night those gang members came at us with knives. We did not tell him that I took a broken bottle to the face protecting you, and you put 2 grown men in the hospital protecting me. We did not tell him that we have already chosen each other over safety 100 times." Maya felt the scar along her ribs, hidden under her uniform. A knife wound from a man who thought 2 homeless girls would be easy targets. Riley had hit him with a trash can lid hard enough to fracture his skull. They had run 8 blocks before collapsing in an abandoned building, holding each other while Riley's face bled and Maya tried not to pass out from the pain at her side. "That is not the same as combat," Maya said quietly. Riley grabbed her sister's hand. "It is exactly the same. Vaughn thinks we will panic when one of us is hurt. We have already been there. We already know what we do when everything falls apart. We do not panic. We do not freeze. We fight. Together." A voice interrupted them. "Mind if I sit?" They looked up. Lance Corporal Jackson Torres stood a few feet away, his utility cover in his hands. He was one of the few male Marines in their training platoon who had never treated the sisters differently. His scores were third behind theirs. Maya nodded. Torres sat cross-legged, maintaining a respectful distance. "I heard what happened in the lieutenant's office yesterday," he said. "I also heard Vaughn lost his mind during this morning's inspection, looking for something to nail you with." "Word travels fast," Riley muttered. Torres shrugged. "It is the Marines. Everyone knows everything." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "Look, I do not know if this helps or if you even want to hear it, but Vaughn pulled the same thing 2 years ago with a female corporal named Sandra Martinez. She was prior service Army, transferred to the Corps, wanted infantry. Vaughn made her life hell. Constant inspections, impossible standards, public criticism. She made it through training, but requested a transfer to a support unit before deployment. He broke her. "Why are you telling us this?" Maya asked. "Because Martinez was alone." Torres met her eyes. "You're not. And because I think Vaughn is wrong. I have trained alongside you both for 8 weeks. I have seen you operate under stress. I have seen you make decisions when everything is chaos. You do not think about each other. You think as each other. That is not weakness. That is the kind of unit cohesion most fire teams spend years trying to build." Riley studied him. "You're risking a lot talking to us like this. Vaughn sees you helping us. He will come after you too." Torres stood, brushing dirt from his utilities. "My dad was a Marine. My uncle was a Marine. My grandfather was a Marine. They taught me that the Corps is not about kissing up to bad NCOs. It is about doing the right thing, even when it is hard." He settled his cover back on his head. "Vaughn is going to keep coming at you. But he cannot break what he does not understand. And he does not understand loyalty that goes beyond orders." He walked away, leaving the sisters in silence. Maya looked at Riley. "We need to be perfect. 0 mistakes. No room for him to build a case." Riley nodded. "And we need to document everything. Every time he targets us, every impossible standard, every time he treats us differently than male Marines. Build our own case." They stood together, brushing grass from their uniforms. The morning sun had burned through the coastal haze. Across the base, Marines moved through their routines. Training, maintenance, preparation for the wars they might face. Maya felt determination settle in her bones. Vaughn thought their bond made them weak. He was about to learn how wrong he was. They had survived parents who did not want them. They had survived the streets. They had survived each other's worst moments and come out stronger. One prejudiced staff sergeant was not going to break them now. As they walked back toward the barracks, Riley spoke quietly. "When we were 18, sitting in that bus station, you told me something. Do you remember what it was?" Maya remembered. "I told you we would find a place where we belonged, where people valued strength over everything else, where what we could do mattered more than what we looked like or where we came from." Riley stopped walking. "We found it, Maya. This is that place. We just have to make them see it." Maya looked at her twin sister. The same face she had seen in mirrors and photos their entire lives. The same determination in those dark eyes that had gotten them through hell. "Then let us make them see it," she said. They did not know that across the base, in the battalion commander's office, Vaughn was already building his case. They did not know that by the end of the week, their careers would hang by a thread. They did not know that the real test had not even begun, but they knew they would face it together, the way they always had. The complaint arrived 3 days later in the form of a sealed envelope delivered to Lieutenant Fisher's office. Maya and Riley were called in during afternoon formation. The lieutenant's face was unreadable as he slid the paper across his desk. Official complaint alleging violation of Article 134, fraternization between Marines in the same chain of command. Fisher's voice was flat. Filed anonymously through the Inspector General's office. Requires mandatory investigation. Riley leaned forward. Sir, we are sisters. There is no romantic relationship here. This is absurd. Fisher held up his hand. I know that, Corporal. The Marine Corps knows that. But the complaint specifically alleges that your personal relationship creates preferential treatment and compromised chain of command. It claims you share confidential information about training evolutions, coordinate to undermine instructor authority, and prioritize each other over mission objectives. Maya felt ice in her stomach. Every word of the complaint was carefully crafted to sound official while being impossible to disprove. Sir, who filed this? Anonymous complaints are permitted under IG regulations, Fisher said. But we both know who is behind it. He stood and walked to the window overlooking the parade deck. The problem is that even though this is obvious retaliation, I still have to investigate. Protocol demands it. You will both be interviewed separately by the Inspector General's office. Your training records will be reviewed. Other Marines in your platoon will be questioned. When? Riley asked. Tomorrow morning. 0800. Fisher turned back to them. In the meantime, you are restricted to base and limited to necessary contact only. No training together, no liberty together, no communication except in official capacity. Maya and Riley exchanged glances. Vaughn had found his angle. He could not prove they would fail in combat, so he was manufacturing failure in garrison. Understood, sir, Maya said. They left the office and walked in opposite directions without speaking. Maya headed to the armory to clean weapons. Riley went to the supply warehouse for inventory duty. The restriction had already begun. That evening, Maya sat alone in the barracks writing in a small notebook. She documented every interaction with Vaughn since training began. Every unreasonable inspection. Every comment about women in infantry. Every time he assigned them faulty equipment or dangerous training without proper safety protocols. Torres had been right. They needed evidence. The next morning at 0800, Maya sat across from a major she had never met before. The Inspector General's representative was a stern woman with silver hair and 3 rows of ribbons. Major Patricia Hendricks opened a folder and began asking questions. How long have you and your sister been in the Marine Corps? 11 months, ma'am. Basic training in this infantry course. Have you ever received preferential treatment from instructors due to your relationship? No, ma'am. If anything, we have been held to higher standards. Have you ever shared confidential training information with your sister that other Marines did not have access to? No, ma'am. We received the same briefings as everyone else. The questions continued for an hour. Maya answered each one truthfully and carefully. She did not mention Vaughn. She did not speculate about who filed the complaint. She simply stated facts. When it ended, Hendricks closed her folder. Corporal Chun, I have been investigating Marine Corps personnel issues for 12 years. I can usually identify spurious complaints within the first 10 minutes. This one set off alarms the moment I read it. Maya remained silent, waiting. Hendricks continued. However, my personal assessment is irrelevant to the process. I will interview your sister, your platoon mates, and your chain of command. I will review your training records and performance evaluations. Then I will submit my findings to the commanding officer. This will take approximately 1 week. In the meantime, the restrictions remain in place. Dismissed. Maya stood, rendered a sharp salute, and left. In the passageway outside, she saw Riley waiting for her turn. They made eye contact for half a second. Riley's slight nod told Maya everything. Stay strong. Do not give them anything. The week that followed was the longest of Maya's life. Longer than those first nights on the street. Longer than the hunger and fear and constant vigilance of homelessness. Because this time, she could not turn to Riley. Could not share the burden. Could not draw strength from the person who had been her anchor since birth. She trained alone. She ate alone. She slept in a barracks full of Marines, but felt completely isolated. Other members of the platoon avoided her, not out of hostility, but out of uncertainty about what was permitted. The complaint had poisoned the atmosphere. On the 4th day, Torres found her running alone on the track at 0530. He fell into step beside her without speaking. They ran 3 miles in silence before he finally said what he came to say. Hendricks interviewed me yesterday, asked about you and Riley, whether I ever saw preferential treatment, coordination against instructors, mission compromise. I told her the truth, that you two are the most professional Marines in this platoon, that your relationship makes you better, not worse, that the only person treating you differently is Vaughn. Maya kept running. Her breath came in steady rhythm with her footfalls. What did she say? Torres matched her pace. She did not say anything, just wrote notes. But she asked me if I had ever witnessed Vaughn demonstrating bias against female Marines. I told her about Martinez. I told her about the pattern. You could get in serious trouble for that. Torres shrugged, though Maya could see the tension in his shoulders. Sometimes doing the right thing is more important than staying safe. My dad taught me that. They finished the run. Torres headed to the barracks. Maya stood on the track watching the sun rise over Camp Lejeune. Somewhere on this base, Riley was waking up alone. Somewhere else, Vaughn was confident his plan was working. On the 7th day, Fisher called them both to his office. Major Hendricks sat in the corner, her folder thick with papers. The lieutenant gestured for the sisters to sit. Hendricks spoke first. After a thorough investigation, including interviews with 17 Marines, review of all training records, and analysis of performance data, I find no evidence supporting the allegations in the anonymous complaint. Her voice was crisp and official. Furthermore, I find substantial evidence of exemplary performance, professional conduct, and adherence to all regulations. My recommendation is complete dismissal of all charges with notation that this complaint was without merit. Maya felt Riley's hand grip the armrest of her chair. Neither of them showed any other reaction. Fisher nodded. I concur with Major Hendricks' findings. The restriction is lifted immediately. You are both returned to full training status. He paused. However, I want to be clear about something. This will not be the last attack. Whoever filed this complaint will try again. You need to be beyond reproach. Not just good. Perfect. Understood. Sir, they said in unison. Hendricks stood. One more thing, corporals. In the course of my investigation, several concerning patterns emerged regarding treatment of female Marines in this training company. I will be expanding my inquiry. If either of you have documentation of specific incidents, my office is available. Maya thought of her notebook. The careful record of every slight, every impossible standard, every comment. She nodded. Yes, ma'am. I have documentation. Hendricks' expression did not change, but something flickered in her eyes. Good. Bring it to my office this afternoon. After they were dismissed, Maya and Riley walked outside. They did not speak until they were away from headquarters, standing in the same spot by the perimeter fence where they had talked before. Riley broke first. She grabbed Maya in a fierce hug. 7 days without being able to talk to you felt like 7 years. Maya held her sister tight. I know, but we survived it. They pulled apart. Riley's eyes were bright with unshed tears. He tried to break us apart, and it did not work. What was he going to try next? Maya thought about Vaughn's face when Fisher had denied his request. The rage barely contained behind professional courtesy. Whatever it is, it will be worse. He is running out of administrative options. That means he will move to something more direct. Riley wiped her eyes. Then we stay ready. That afternoon, Maya delivered her notebook to Major Hendricks. The Major read through it without comment, making occasional notes. When she finished, she looked up at Maya with something approaching respect. This is thorough. Dates, times, witnesses, specific quotes. You have been building this for weeks. Since the first day of training, ma'am. When Vaughn made it clear he did not think women belonged in infantry. Hendricks closed the notebook. Corporal Chun, I cannot promise this will result in action against Staff Sergeant Vaughn. The system moves slowly and requires substantial evidence. But I can promise it will be reviewed. And I can promise that if he continues this pattern, there will now be a paper trail. That is all I ask, ma'am. Maya left the office and found Riley waiting outside. Torres stood with her. The three of them, an unlikely alliance formed in the pressure of Vaughn's antagonism. Torres grinned. Heard you got cleared. Knew you would. Riley bumped his shoulder. Thank you for speaking up. You did not have to do that. Yes, I did, Torres said simply. Because it was true, and because the Corps I believe in does not break good Marines for politics. The three of them walked back toward the barracks as the sun set over the base. Somewhere in his office, Vaughn was learning that his complaint had failed. Somewhere in the administrative building, Hendricks was documenting patterns of bias. And somewhere in the future, a test was coming that would prove once and for all whether the Chun sisters belonged in combat. But for now, they had won a battle. They had survived another attempt to separate them. Maya looked at her sister and saw the same determination she felt. Vaughn could come at them with paperwork, inspections, complaints, and bureaucracy. None of it would work, because they had survived worse with nothing. Now, they had the Marine Corps behind them. Now they had allies. Now, they had proof of their worth. Let him try again. The training schedule appeared on the company board 2 days after the complaint was dismissed. Maya read it 3 times, her stomach tightening with each pass. Underwater demolition training. Week 6. Mandatory for all infantry Marines. 40% injury rate. High-risk evolution requiring medical clearance and psychological screening. Riley appeared at her shoulder. He is sending us into the water. Maya nodded. She did not need to ask who Riley meant. The timing was too perfect. Vaughn knew something they had not put in any official record. Something they had never told anyone in the Corps. That night, after lights out, Riley climbed into Maya's rack. It was against regulations, but neither of them cared. Riley's voice was barely a whisper. I have not been in water deeper than a bathtub since I was 7. Maya remembered. The public pool in their 3rd foster home. Riley going under, thrashing. Maya screaming for help. The lifeguard pulling Riley out blue and choking. The terror in her sister's eyes. How'd he find out? Riley asked. Maya had been wondering the same thing. Their foster care records were sealed. Their childhood was nowhere in their Marine Corps files. Unless someone had dug very deep, very deliberately. He must have run background beyond standard checks, Maya said, looking for weakness. Riley was silent for a long moment. I cannot do it. I know I should be able to. I know I'm a Marine, and Marines do not quit. But the thought of being underwater, unable to breathe, trapped. Her voice broke. I cannot. Maya pulled her sister close. Then we train. We have 4 days before the medical screening. We use every free minute. I will be with you. What if I fail the screening? What if they see I am terrified? Then we make sure they do not see it, Maya said. We start small. We build up. We face it together. The next morning at 0500, before the rest of the platoon woke, Maya and Riley went to the base pool. The facility was empty, the water still and chlorine sharp. Riley stood at the edge, her hands shaking. Maya stripped her PT gear and slid into the shallow end. The water came to her waist. She held out her hand. Just wade in. That is all. No swimming. No going under. Just stand in the water. Riley's face was pale, but she stepped down the ladder. Her breathing accelerated as the water reached her knees, her waist, her chest. Maya took her hand. Look at me, Maya said. Not the water. Me. Riley locked eyes with her sister. Her grip was crushing, but Maya did not flinch. They stood in the shallow end for 20 minutes. When Riley's breathing evened out, Maya let her deeper. Shoulder depth. Riley's knuckles went white around Maya's hand, but she did not pull away. Tomorrow we go deeper, Maya said. Day after that, we practice holding breath. We build it piece by piece until you can do this. Over the next 3 days, they returned to the pool each morning. Riley learned to put her face in the water, then to hold her breath underwater for 10 seconds, then 20, then to swim a single lap in the shallow end. On the 4th morning, Torres appeared at the pool entrance. He stood watching for a moment before approaching. Riley is afraid of water. Maya turned to face him. If you tell anyone, if this gets back to Vaughn, I will make you regret it. Torres raised his hands. I'm not here to cause problems. I am here to help. He dove into the pool and surfaced beside them. My dad was a combat diver. He taught me a trick for people scared of drowning. You do not fight the panic. You acknowledge it, accept it, and then you focus on one thing at a time. One breath, one stroke, 1 second. Riley treaded water, watching him warily. Why would you help me? Because Vaughn wants you to fail, Torres said. And I want him to be wrong. He spent the next hour teaching Riley techniques for managing underwater panic. How to equalize pressure. How to orient yourself when you cannot see. How to stay calm when your lungs are screaming for air. By the time medical screening arrived, Riley could swim 20 laps and hold her breath for 45 seconds. She was not comfortable in water, but she was functional. The screening took place in a classroom with a Navy corpsman asking questions from a checklist. Any history of panic attacks? Any fear of confined spaces? Any incidents of water-related trauma? Riley answered no to every question. Her voice was steady. Her hands did not shake. Maya sat across the room during her sister's screening and felt pride surge through her chest. Riley was terrified, but she was doing it anyway. They both passed. The underwater demolition training began the following Monday. 20 Marines stood on the pool deck in full gear. Instructors from a combat diver school explained the evolution. They would enter the water with 40 pounds of equipment, swim to the bottom of the 12-foot pool, remove and reassemble a simulated explosive device, then surface. Time limit, 3 minutes. Failure to complete meant recycling through the entire training phase. Vaughn stood to the side, observing. His eyes tracked Maya and Riley with predatory focus. The first Marine entered the water and completed the evolution in 2 minutes. The second took 2.5. The third panicked at the bottom and had to be pulled out by safety divers. Torres went 6th. He made it look easy, surfacing with 30 seconds to spare. Riley was called 8th. Maya watched her sister approach the pool edge, saw the moment of hesitation, saw Riley's hand clench into a fist. Then Riley stepped off the edge and disappeared beneath the surface. 45 seconds passed. Maya counted each one. Riley should have reached the bottom by now. Should be working on the device. 1 minute. The instructors watched their stopwatches without concern. This was normal timing. 1 minute 30. Maya saw movement in the depths. Riley's form working at the device. 2 minutes. Riley started her ascent. Too slow. She was moving like someone fighting through water. 2 minutes 15. Riley's head broke the surface 10 feet from the edge. She swam to the side and pulled herself out. Her face was ashen but controlled. Time, the instructor called. 2 minutes 40 seconds. Pass. Riley walked past Vaughn without looking at him. Maya saw her sister's hands trembling, but her spine was straight. Maya went 10th. The water closed over her head, and she dropped to the bottom with controlled breathing. The device was a simple puzzle box. She had it disassembled and reassembled in 90 seconds. She surfaced at 1 minute 50. Vaughn's jaw was clenched so tight Maya could see the muscles jumping. The evolution continued through the afternoon. By 1700, 19 Marines had completed it. One had failed and would recycle. The final scores were posted. Riley had the 8th fastest time. Maya had the fastest. That evening, the platoon gathered at the enlisted club for beer and celebration. Riley sat in a corner booth with Torres, her hands wrapped around a bottle she had not touched. Maya joined them. I did it, Riley said quietly. I was so scared I thought I would die. But I did it. Torres raised his bottle. To doing the hard thing. They clinked bottles. Around them, Marines laughed and told stories. The normal release after a difficult evolution. But Maya kept watching the door. Vaughn appeared at 2000. He scanned the room, found the Chun sisters, and walked directly to their booth. Congratulations, corporals. His voice was perfectly modulated. Professional courtesy with an edge of something darker. Impressive performance today. Particularly you, Corporal Riley Chun. Overcoming fear is the mark of a true Marine. Riley's bottle stopped halfway to her lips. How did you know I was afraid? Vaughn smiled. It was not a kind expression. I make it my business to know everything about the Marines I train. Your foster care records made interesting reading. The pool incident when you were 7. The lifeguard report. The psychological evaluation afterward. All sealed, of course, but accessible to someone with proper clearance and sufficient motivation. Maya stood. Her chair scraped against the floor. You had no right to access sealed records. Vaughn turned his attention to her. I had every right. As your instructor, I am responsible for identifying potential weaknesses that could compromise unit effectiveness. A Marine with aquaphobia attempting underwater operations is a safety hazard. I could have had you disqualified before you ever entered that pool. Then why did you not? Torres asked. Vaughn's smile widened. Because I wanted to see if you would fail on your own. I wanted your sister to watch you panic and quit. I wanted to prove my point about emotional liability. He paused. But you did not quit, which means I will have to try harder. He walked away. The celebration around them continued, but the booth had gone silent. Riley set down her bottle. He will never stop. No matter what we do, no matter how well we perform, he will find something else to use against us. Maya watched Vaughn leave the club. Her mind was racing through options and scenarios. He violated regulations accessing your sealed records. We can report him. Torres shook his head. His word against yours. He will claim legitimate training purposes. Meanwhile, you look like you were targeting him because he is tough on you. So what do we do? Riley asked. Maya looked at her sister. We keep being perfect. We keep passing everything he throws at us. And we wait for him to make a mistake. Because eventually, his anger will override his judgment. Eventually, he will cross a line he cannot uncross. Riley nodded slowly. How long do we wait? As long as it takes, Maya said. We have survived 18 years of people trying to break us. We can survive one staff sergeant. But even as she said it, Maya felt the weight of Vaughn's obsession. This was not just professional disagreement anymore. This was personal vendetta, and men consumed by vendetta were dangerous in ways that went beyond regulations and official channels. Somewhere across the base, Vaughn was planning his next move. Somewhere in the administrative building, their files documented their perfection. And somewhere in the future, a reckoning was approaching that would test everything they claimed to be. But tonight, they had one again. Riley had faced her deepest fear and conquered it. That had to count for something. It had to be enough. Riley sat on the edge of her rack at 0200, staring at nothing. Maya woke to the sound of her sister's breathing, the pattern she had learned to recognize over 18 years. Riley was not sleeping. She was thinking. And when Riley thought this hard in the middle of the night, it meant something was breaking. Maya crossed the dark barracks and sat beside her. Talk to me. Riley did not look at her. What if he is right? About what? About us. About the liability. Riley's voice was hollow. I almost did not make it out of that pool, Maya. I was at the bottom and my mind went blank. Pure panic. I forgot everything Torres taught me. I forgot my training. All I could think was that I was going to drown, and you were up there watching, and I could not let you see me fail. That is what got me moving again. Not the mission, not the training. You. Maya understood where this was going. That is not weakness. That is motivation. Riley finally turned to face her. In that moment, if the choice had been completing the mission or getting to you, I would have abandoned everything. Vaughn is right. When it matters, I will choose you over the Corps, over the mission, over everything. The words hung between them like smoke. Maya felt something cold settle in her chest because she knew the same truth about herself. If Riley's life was on the line, there was no mission important enough to justify losing her. So what are you saying? Maya asked quietly. That we should request separation? That we should prove Vaughn right? Riley's hands clenched on the edge of the rack. I am saying maybe he is not wrong. Maybe we are an emotional liability. Maybe the Corps would be better served if we were in different units where we could not compromise each other. Maya stood. Her voice came out harder than she intended. You won't give up? After everything we have been through? After we proved we could pass his tests? I want us to survive, Riley said. I want us both to come home from whatever war they send us to. And I'm terrified that being together means one of us will not. The barracks was silent except for the breathing of sleeping Marines. Maya looked at her sister and saw genuine fear. Not the fear of water or pain or death. The fear of being the reason Maya died. Come with me, Maya said. They walked out of the barracks and across the base in the pre-dawn darkness. Past the administrative buildings and training facilities. Past the motor pool and armory. Maya led Riley to the base cemetery, a small plot of land where Marines who died in training were buried. 15 headstones stood in neat rows. Maya walked to one in the back. Private First Class David Chun. The dates showed he had been 19 when he died. A training accident 12 years ago. Riley stared at the headstone. We have a cousin buried here. No relation, Maya said. I found this 3 weeks ago when I was running. I looked him up. Chun is a common name. He was an only child. His parents were Chinese immigrants who worked in a restaurant in San Francisco. He joined the Marines to give them a better life. Died in a vehicle rollover during convoy training. Why are you showing me this? Because he died alone, Maya said. No siblings. No one who understood him the way only family can. No one watching his back. He did everything right. Followed every protocol. And he still died because sometimes accidents happen and training fails and the person next to you is not fast enough or strong enough or does not care enough to save you. Riley was quiet, studying the headstone in the growing light. Maya continued, You think we were a liability because we would choose each other. But David Chun died because no one chose him. Because he was just another Marine in a convoy, and when that vehicle rolled, no one reacted fast enough to pull him out before it caught fire. She turned to face Riley. I would rather have you compromised by loving me than have either of us alone and expendable. Riley's eyes were wet. What if I get you killed? What if you save my life? What if I save yours? What if the reason we survive is because we care too much, not too little? Maya grabbed her sister's shoulders. Vaughn thinks emotion makes us weak. He is wrong. Emotion makes us fight harder. Makes us stay conscious when we should pass out. Makes us run faster when we should collapse. We have already proven that. Every night on the streets. Every attack we survived. Every moment we refused to quit. The sun was beginning to rise, painting the sky orange and red. Riley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I am scared. Good, Maya said. Fear keeps you alert. Fear keeps you alive. But do not let it make you run from the one thing that has kept us alive this long. Each other. They walked back toward the barracks in silence. As they approached, they saw Torres standing outside, clearly waiting for them. Bad night? He asked. Riley nodded, doubting everything. Torres fell in a step beside them. My dad told me something before I shipped to boot camp. He said the Marines would try to break me down and build me back up into something stronger. He said I should let them break everything except the core of who I am, because that core is what I will need when everything else fails. What is your point? Maya asked. Your core is each other, Torres said. Vaughn wants to break that because he does not understand it. He thinks individuals are stronger than pairs. He is wrong. I have watched you two operate. You are not two Marines. You are one unit with two bodies. That is not weakness. That is evolution. They reached the barracks as the rest of the platoon was waking. The day's training schedule was already posted. Field operations. 72-hour exercise. Escape and evasion scenarios. Full combat load. And at the bottom of the notice, in Vaughn's handwriting, Corporals M, Chun and R. Chun assigned separate fire teams. No communication between teams during exercise. Riley read it and laughed. It was a brittle sound. He really will not stop. Maya studied the assignment. Vaughn had split them deliberately, put them with fire teams on opposite sides of the training area, made sure they would spend 3 days apart, unable to coordinate, unable to support each other. Torres read over their shoulders. He is testing whether you can function independently. Or hoping we fail independently, Riley said. Maya pulled the notice off the board. Then we show him we can do both. We operate separately, and we both excel. When this exercise is over, we will have proven we are not codependent. We're just better together. The 72-hour exercise began that afternoon. Maya's fire team loaded into trucks and headed to the northern training area. Through the canvas cover, she caught a glimpse of Riley's truck heading south. Then they were separated by distance and mission. The exercise was brutal by design. Minimal sleep, constant movement, simulated enemy contact every few hours. Maya's team leader was a corporal named James who treated her with cautious respect. He had heard about the Chin twins, but had never worked with either of them. First night, 0200, they were ambushed during a patrol. Maya was on point. She identified the threat before the first simulated round was fired and got her team into cover. They won the engagement. James looked at her with new appreciation. Second day, they were ordered to assault a fortified position. Maya volunteered to lead the breach. She moved through the structure with precision that surprised even herself. When they secured the objective, James asked where she learned to clear rooms like that. Homeless shelters, Maya said. You learn to check corners when you live in places where predators wait in dark spaces. James did not ask follow-up questions. Second night, during a rest period, Maya allowed herself to wonder how Riley was doing. Whether her team was treating her fairly. Whether Vaughn had sabotaged her assignment somehow. Then she pushed the thoughts away. Riley could handle herself. They both could. Third day, the scenario changed. Command radioed that a civilian was trapped in a structure fire near the training area. Not a drill. Real emergency. All teams were being recalled to base to assist. Maya's team was closest to the coordinates. James looked at the map, then at his Marines. We are 20 minutes from that location. Everyone else is 40+ out. Maya understood what he was asking without him saying it. We go now. James nodded. Load up. Double time. They reached the site in 15 minutes. A small building near the base perimeter was burning. Black smoke poured from broken windows. A woman stood outside screaming that her children were inside. James radioed for support, but Maya was already moving. She grabbed a fire extinguisher from their truck and ran toward the entrance. Behind her, she heard James cursing and ordering the team to follow. The smoke was thick enough to blind. Maya dropped low, feeling her way forward. She found the first child in what looked like a bathroom. A girl, maybe 6 years old, unconscious from smoke inhalation. Maya slung her over her shoulder and kept moving. The second child was deeper in the structure. A boy older, maybe 10. He was conscious but trapped under a fallen beam. Maya set down the girl and tried to lift the beam. It would not move. She heard footsteps behind her. Torres emerged from the smoke. His fire team had arrived from the south. He did not look surprised to see her. Together, they lifted the beam. Maya pulled the boy free. Torres grabbed the girl. They moved toward the exit as the ceiling began to collapse. They made it out as the structure came down behind them. Emergency responders were arriving. The mother grabbed her children, sobbing. Both kids were breathing. Both would survive. Maya turned and saw Riley sprinting across the training area. Her sister had abandoned her position and run 2 miles to get here. Riley grabbed Maya in a fierce hug, checking for injuries. James and Torres watched. So did Vaughn, who had arrived with the command staff. Lieutenant Fisher approached the sisters. His face was grim. You both abandoned your positions and disobeyed orders to remain in your training areas. Yes, sir, Maya said. Riley nodded. Torres stepped forward. Sir, I gave Corporal Maya Chen authorization to enter the structure. She saved 2 lives. You do not have authority to give that authorization, Lance Corporal Fisher said, but his tone was not angry. He looked at Vaughn. Staff Sergeant, your assessment? Vaughn's face was stone. They violated the exercise parameters. They should be recycled. Fisher studied the sisters. They also saved 2 children while every other team was too far away to respond. That is the definition of Marine Corps values. Initiativa, courage, commitment. He turned back to Vaughn. I am recommending both Corporals Chun for commendations. And you, Staff Sergeant, for formal counseling on recognizing the difference between following orders and doing what is right. The words hit like a hammer. Vaughn's face went white, then red. He said nothing, but the rage in his eyes was murderous. That night, back at barracks, Riley sat on Maya's rack. We are never getting rid of him. No, Maya agreed. But we just proved something important. What? That even separated, even under pressure, we both made the same choice. We save lives. That is what Marines do. She looked at her sister. Vaughn thinks our bond makes us weak. Today we proved it makes us exactly what the Corps needs. The psychological evaluation appointment arrived in Maya's inbox 3 days after the rescue. Mandatory fitness assessment for all Marines involved in emergency response operations. Report to Medical Building 3 at 0900. Major Elena Reeves, clinical psychologist. Riley received an identical message. They walked to the appointment together, neither speaking about the obvious truth. Vaughn had found another angle. If he could not break them physically or administratively, he would try to break them mentally. The waiting room was standard military medical. Beige walls, uncomfortable chairs, outdated magazines. A lance corporal sat behind a desk processing paperwork. He looked up when they entered. Corporal's Chun? Major Reeves will see you separately. Corporal Maya first. Maya followed him down a corridor to an office at the end. The door was open. Behind a desk sat a woman in her late 40s with silver streaking through dark hair, pulled back in a tight bun. 3 rows of ribbons decorated her uniform. Her name, Tape Red Reeves. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Corporal Chun. Seat. Close the door. Maya complied. She sat at attention, hands on her knees, eyes forward. Standard position for any interaction with a superior officer. Reeves studied her for a long moment. Relax, Corporal. This is not an interrogation. She opened a folder. I have read your training records. Exceptional performance across the board. Top of your class in every metric. Your instructors describe you as focused, disciplined, and highly competent. She paused. They also described you as emotionally distant with everyone except your sister. Maya kept her expression neutral. I maintain professional relationships with my fellow Marines, ma'am. That is not what I asked about. Reeves leaned back in her chair. Tell me about the rescue. Why did you enter that burning building? The children were inside. Someone had to get them out. Your team leader had called for emergency responders. They would have arrived. Not in time, Maya said. The smoke was too thick. The children would have died waiting for proper support. So you made a decision to risk your life for 2 children you did not know? Reeves said. That is admirable. It is also the kind of decision that concerns psychologists, because it suggests either extraordinary courage or a fundamental disregard for your own safety. Maya met her eyes. I calculated the risk. I determined it was acceptable. Did your sister factor into that calculation? The question was a trap. Maya recognized it immediately. If she said yes, she proved Vaughn's point about emotional liability. If she said no, she was lying and Reeves would know it. She decided on truth. My sister was in a different training area. I did not know she would respond to the emergency call. My decision was independent of her location. Reeves made a note. But when she arrived, you were relieved to see her. You embraced her before receiving medical evaluation. That suggests your emotional state was compromised by her presence. My emotional state was relief that the children survived, Maya said carefully. Seeing my sister simply confirmed that both rescue teams had responded successfully. Reeves smiled slightly. You're very good at this. Controlled responses. Careful word choice. Minimal emotional display. She closed the folder. Let me tell you something about myself, Corporal. I have been evaluating Marines for 22 years. I was one of the first female infantry officers in the Corps. I know what it is like to be constantly tested, constantly questioned, constantly forced to prove you belong. Maya felt something shift in the room. This was not the evaluation she had expected. Reeves continued. 15 years ago, I trained with a staff sergeant named Derek Vaughn. He was a junior NCO then, fresh from deployment, full of opinions about who belonged in combat roles. She paused. His wife was a Marine, Lieutenant Sarah Vaughn. She was my friend. They were married for 3 years before she left him. Why are you telling me this, ma'am? Because Vaughn has told the Corps a very specific story about why his marriage ended, Reeves said. He claims his wife left him for another woman, a female Marine officer. He has used that story to justify his belief that women in infantry create inappropriate relationships and emotional complications. And the truth? Maya asked. The truth is that Sarah Vaughn left him because he could not respect a woman who was stronger than him. She was a better officer, a better leader, and a better Marine. He could not handle it. When she received orders to Quantico for advanced training, and he did not. When she was promoted ahead of him, when she earned recognition he felt he deserved, he became bitter and controlling. She left him because he tried to diminish her to feel better about himself. Maya processed this information. So his targeting of female Marines is personal. Reeves nodded. After Sarah left, Vaughn began a pattern of behavior that has continued for over a decade. He identifies promising female Marines and systematically attempts to prove they do not belong. He uses his position as an instructor to create impossible standards, manufacture failures, and force them to quit. She leaned forward. You and your sister are not his first targets. You are his latest targets, and you're the first ones who have refused to break. How many? Maya asked. How many has he forced out? Reeves opened a different folder. I have been documenting his pattern since I became aware of it 5 years ago. 14 confirmed cases. Women who showed exceptional promise in training and were assigned to Vaughn's instruction. All of them requested transfers to non-combat roles or left the Corps entirely within 6 months of working under him. Maya felt rage building in her chest. And no one stopped him? He is careful, Reeves said. He never leaves evidence of overt harassment. He uses legitimate training standards applied selectively. He manufactures situations where failure appears organic rather than engineered. And, until recently, no one was tracking the pattern across multiple training cycles. Until you, Maya said. Reeves nodded. I started keeping records after a former student of mine, Corporal Sandra Martinez, took her own life 3 years ago. She left a note describing the psychological torture Vaughn put her through. How he convinced her she was worthless. How he made her believe she was endangering other Marines by existing. I should have seen it earlier. I should have protected her. The office was silent for a moment. Maya thought about all the women who came before her and Riley. All the careers destroyed. All the dreams crushed. Why are you telling me this now? Maya asked. Because this evaluation is not about determining your fitness, Reeves said. It is about building a case against Vaughn. He requested this evaluation, hoping I would find you psychologically unsuitable. What he does not know is that I have been waiting for someone strong enough to survive him long enough for me to gather the evidence I need. You want us to be bait, Maya said. I want you to be yourselves, Reeves corrected. Keep doing what you are doing. Keep excelling. Keep documenting every interaction. And when he finally crosses a line that even his careful methods cannot conceal, I will have enough evidence to end his career. What line? Maya asked. What are we waiting for? Reeves met her eyes. He is escalating. The pattern shows that when his usual methods fail, he becomes more aggressive, more reckless. He will eventually do something that leaves undeniable proof of his intent. When that happens, I need you both to still be standing, still in the Corps, still able to testify. And if we are not, if he breaks us first, then he wins again, Reeves said simply. And more women after you will suffer. She stood. I am passing you and your sister on this evaluation with the highest marks possible. You are psychologically fit for combat duty. In fact, you are among the most resilient Marines I have ever assessed. But I need you to understand what you are walking into. Vaughn is not going to stop. He's going to get worse. Maya stood as well. We are not going to quit, ma'am. I know, Reeves said. That is why I am trusting you with this information. She handed Maya a card with a phone number. If anything happens, if Vaughn does anything that crosses into criminal behavior, you call me immediately, day or night. Do not go through your chain of command first. Call me. Maya took the card. Understood, Mom. She left the office and found Riley waiting in the corridor. Her sister's face was tight with controlled emotion. Riley had clearly received the same information. They walked outside without speaking until they were away from the building. Riley stopped walking and turned to Maya. 14 women, she said. 14 careers destroyed. 1 dead. And we're supposed to keep playing his game while Reeves builds case? Maya nodded. What choice do we have? We could transfer out, Riley said. Request reassignment. Get away from him. And leave him here to destroy the next woman who shows promise? Maya asked. Leave him in a position to keep doing this? Riley kicked to the ground. I hate this. I hate that we have to be perfect while he gets to be a monster. I hate that our job is to survive him instead of just being Marines. Maya grabbed her sister's shoulders. Listen to me. Reeves said we're the first ones strong enough to survive him. That means something. That means all those women who came before us, all the ones who broke, they were not weak. He was just stronger than they were. But he is not stronger than us. How do you know? Riley asked. Because we have already survived worse than Derek Vaughn, Maya said. We survived being unwanted. We survived being thrown away. We survived the streets and the violence and the constant knowledge that nobody cared if we lived or died. Vaughn is just another person trying to break us. And we do not break. Riley was quiet for a long moment. Then what do? We keep going, Maya said. We keep being perfect. We keep documenting everything. And we wait for him to make his mistake. Because Reeves is right. He is escalating. He is getting desperate. And desperate people make errors. They walked back toward the barracks. The sun was high and hot. Marines moved between buildings on afternoon duties. Normal life for everyone except the Chun twins, who had just learned they were part of a pattern 15 years in the making. Maya thought about Sandra Martinez, about 14 other women whose names she did not know, about all the potential that had been crushed because one bitter man could not accept his own inadequacy. She made a silent promise to them all. Vaughn would not win. Not this time. Not with her and Riley. They would stand. They would endure. And when he finally fell, it would be because they refused to let him destroy anyone else. That night, Maya added Major Reeves's information to her documentation notebook. The pattern, the history, the stakes. Everything was building towards something. She could feel it approaching like a storm on the horizon. Riley climbed into her rack without speaking. But Maya heard her whisper in the darkness. We survive together. We fight together. Maya whispered back the completion of their childhood pact. And we never let anyone break us apart. The notification came down through official channels 2 days after the psychological evaluation. Staff Sergeant Derek Vaughn suspended pending investigation into allegations of misconduct and discriminatory treatment of female Marines. Temporary reassignment effective immediately. Staff Sergeant Linda Cross assigned as interim senior instructor. The platoon gathered in the common area to hear the announcement from Lieutenant Fisher. Maya watched faces around the room. Some Marines looked relieved, others confused. A few looked angry, loyal to Vaughn despite everything. Fisher dismissed them without elaboration. As Marines filed out, Torres caught Maya's eye and nodded toward the door. They met outside with Riley. Reeves moved fast, Torres said. 2 days from evaluation to suspension. Maya shook her head. She said she had been building the case for 5 years. We were just the final piece. So, it is over? Riley asked. He is gone? Suspended is not gone, Maya said. It is pending investigation. He could be reinstated. The three of them stood in silence, processing what this meant. After 2 months of constant pressure, constant testing, constant threat, the sudden absence felt wrong, like a wound that had been cauterized before it could properly bleed. Staff Sergeant Cross appeared in the doorway of the instruction building. She was a compact woman in her mid-30s with scars on her forearms and eyes that had seen combat. Corporals Chun, Torres. My office. They followed her inside. Cross closed the door and leaned against her desk. She did not sit, did not offer them seats. I know who you are, she said. I know what Vaughn did to you. I know because he did the same thing to me 5 years ago. Maya remembered Reeves mentioning Cross, one of Vaughn's former targets. Cross continued. I was infantry. I loved it. I was good at it. I had my whole career mapped out. Then Vaughn became my instructor for advanced training. She looked at her hands. Within 3 months, I requested a transfer to supply. Within 6 months, I was thinking about eating my sidearm. Within a year, I was out of the Corps entirely. Why are you back? Riley asked. Because I got angry, Cross said. I spent 4 years working dead-end jobs, drinking too much, hating myself for quitting. Then I heard about Sandra Martinez, about what she did, about how Vaughn had pushed another woman to the same edge he pushed me to. She met their eyes. I re-enlisted. I clawed my way back into an instructor position. I had been waiting for a chance to be here when Vaughn finally fell. You knew he would fall? Maya asked. I knew someone would eventually be strong enough to survive him long enough, Cross said. I hoped it would happen before he killed someone else. She pushed off the desk. I am here to finish your training the way it should have been done from the start. No sabotage. No impossible standards. No sa ukeladi varfare. Just Marine Corps infantry training at the level you have already proven you can handle. The relief Maya felt was physical, like pressure releasing from her chest. But I need you to understand something, Cross continued. Vaughn is not gone. He is suspended. He is still on base. He is still drawing pay. And if the investigation does not find sufficient evidence, he will be reinstated. She paused, which means you need to be ready for him to come back angrier than before. Or for the investigation to stick, Torres said. Cross nodded. Major Reeves is thorough. If anyone can build a case that ends his career, it is her. But these things take time. Months, potentially. In the meantime, you train. You prepare for graduation and deployment. You become the Marines you are meant to be. Over the following week, training transformed. Cross was demanding but fair. She pushed them hard without pushing them down. She identified weaknesses and provided tools to improve rather than using weaknesses as weapons. The entire platoon felt the difference. Maya and Riley excelled. Without the constant pressure of sabotage, their natural abilities flourished. Their scores climbed even higher. Other Marines began asking them for advice, treating them as leaders rather than targets. Torres continued training alongside them, his friendship deepening into something closer to family. The three of them formed a fire team that moved with the kind of synchronization that usually took years to develop. On the sixth day of Cross's instruction, Maya was called to Major Reeves's office. Riley was already there when she arrived. Reeves gestured for them to sit. I wanted to update you on the investigation. I have interviewed 32 witnesses. I have compiled documentation going back 12 years. I have enough evidence to prove a pattern of discriminatory behavior that violates multiple regulations and potentially rises to criminal harassment. That is good news, Riley said. Reeves' expression was grim. It should be, but Vaughn has retained a civilian attorney. He is claiming that his treatment of female Marines was motivated by legitimate safety concerns based on his combat experience. He is arguing that any appearance of discrimination was actually conscientious application of higher standards to protect unit cohesion. Can he win with that defense? Maya asked. In a civilian court, no, Reeves said. In a military administrative hearing, maybe. The burden of proof is different. And Vaughn has 15 years of exemplary fitness reports and commendations. He has advocates among senior leadership who believe his methods, while harsh, produce results. So what happens now? Riley asked. Now we wait for the formal hearing. Reeves said. It is scheduled for 3 weeks from today. You will both be called as witnesses. So will Torres. So will every woman Vaughn targeted who is willing to testify. She paused. I need to prepare you for what that will be like. Vaughn's attorney will attack your credibility. He will question your motives. He will try to make it seem like you are targeting Vaughn because you could not handle his legitimate instruction. We can handle it, Maya said. I know you can, Reeves said, but I also know it will be brutal. She slid 2 folders across the desk. These contain the questions you will likely be asked and the areas his attorney will probe. Study them. Prepare your answers. Do not be caught off guard. Maya opened her folder. The first page listed questions designed to make her look weak, emotional, or vindictive. She felt her jaw tighten. One more thing, Reeves said. Vaughn requested permission to observe the remainder of your training. It was denied, but he is still on base, still watching. If he approaches you, if he speaks to you, if he does anything that could be construed as witness intimidation, you document it immediately and contact me. They left Reeves's office with the folders. Outside, Riley stopped walking. 3 more weeks of waiting, she said. 3 more weeks wondering if he gets away with it. He will not, Maya said with more confidence than she felt. That night, Maya studied the questions in her folder. Each one was designed to exploit vulnerability or create doubt. Did you request assignment to Vaughn's platoon specifically? Did you ever fail to meet a training standard? Did you communicate with other female Marines to coordinate testimony? Have you ever been diagnosed with any mental health conditions? The questions went on for pages. Maya wrote careful answers to each one, knowing that any hesitation during testimony would be used against her. She was still writing at midnight when Riley climbed into her rack. Cannot sleep either? Maya asked. Every time I close my eyes, I see Sandra Martinez, Riley said quietly. I wonder if she looked like us, if she was strong like us, if she thought she could survive him too. Maya set down her pen. We are not her. We have each other. She did not. That is what scares me, Riley said. If someone that's strong broke, what makes us think we are stronger? Maya turned to face her sister. Because we are still here. Because after everything he threw at us, we are still standing. Because when he tried to separate us, we fought. When he tried to drown you, you swam. When he tried to make us quit, we excelled. She grabbed Riley's hand. We are not stronger than her individually. We are stronger because we are together. Riley squeezed her hand. 3 weeks until the hearing. Then what? Then we testify. We tell the truth. And we trust that truth is enough. But Maya knew that truth was not always enough in systems designed to protect power. She knew that Vaughn had survived this long because the Corps valued order over justice, cohesion over change. She knew that their testimony might not be enough to end him. She also knew they had no choice but to try. 10 days later, Maya saw Vaughn for the first time since his suspension. She was running on the track at dawn when she spotted him standing by the fence, watching. He did not approach, did not speak, just watched with an expression she could not read. Maya kept running, completed her 5 miles. When she looked back, he was gone. She reported it to Reeves that afternoon. The major added it to her documentation, but her expression was troubled. He is testing boundaries, Reeves said, seeing how close he can get without technically violating the no-contact order. It is a power play. He wants you to know he is still here. Is it working? Maya asked. Reeves smiled slightly. Are you scared? No, Maya said. I am angry. Good, Reeves said. Channel that anger into your testimony. Make him regret ever trying to break you. The hearing was 12 days away. Maya and Riley trained harder than ever, pushing themselves to levels that impressed even Cross. They memorized their testimony. They prepared for every possible attack on their credibility. And they waited for the day when Derek Vaughn would finally face consequences for 15 years of destroying women who dared to be Marines. Torres found them the night before the hearing. He sat on the barrack steps with a 6-pack of contraband beer. The 3 of them sat in silence, drinking slowly. Whatever happens tomorrow, Torres said, you changed this place. You proved something that needed proving. We have not won yet, Riley said. You already won, Torres said. You survived. That is the victory. Everything else is just paperwork. Maya looked up at the stars over Camp Lejeune. She thought about all the women who came before them. All the ones who broke. All the ones who quit. All the ones who believed Vaughn when he told them they did not belong. Tomorrow, she would speak for all of them. Tomorrow, the reckoning would begin. The hearing room was smaller than Maya expected. A conference table, 8 chairs, fluorescent lights that made everything look institutional and cold. 3 officers sat on one side as the panel. A lieutenant colonel, a major, and a female captain. Vaughn sat at the opposite end with his attorney, a civilian in an expensive suit who looked out of place among the uniforms. Major Reeves sat behind a separate table with her case files stacked in precise order. Maya and Riley waited outside with Torres and 5 other women who had agreed to testify. Former Marines who had left the Corps because of Vaughn. Women who had rebuilt their lives and were now willing to tear open old wounds for the chance at justice. One of them was a woman in her early 30s named Jennifer Park. She had been out of the Marines for 6 years. She sat with her hands clasped tight enough to show white knuckles. I should not have come, Park said to no one in particular. This is going to destroy me all over again. Riley moved to sit beside her. You are here because you are strong enough to face him. Park laughed bitterly. I was strong enough to survive deployment to Helmand Province. But 3 months with Vaughn broke me so badly I spent 2 years in therapy. What does that say about me? It says he is very good at what he does, Maya said. And that is exactly why we need to stop him. The door opened. A lance corporal gestured to Maya. Corporal Chun, you are first. Maya stood and walked into the hearing room. The panel barely looked at her. Vaughn stared directly at her with an expression of calm confidence that made her want to flip the table. His attorney stood and introduced himself as Richard Morrison. Corporal Chun, Morrison began. You have made serious allegations against Staff Sergeant Vaughn. Allegations that could end a distinguished 15-year career. I want to make sure we understand the full context of your claims. Maya remained standing at attention. I am ready to answer questions, sir. Morrison walked around the table, a theatrical movement designed to dominate the space. You enlisted in the Marine Corps 11 months ago. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And you specifically requested infantry training despite being advised it would be more challenging for female Marines? I requested infantry because it is where I could best serve, Maya said. Despite having no prior military experience in your family, no background that would prepare you for the physical and mental demands? My background prepared me perfectly, Maya said. I survived homelessness, assault, and 6 months on the streets of Los Angeles. Infantry training was easier than my childhood. Morrison paused, clearly not expecting that answer. He recovered quickly. Let's talk about your relationship with your sister. You and Corporal Riley Chun are twins. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Would you describe your relationship as emotionally dependent? I would describe it as loyal, Maya said. Loyal to the point where you would make false allegations against an instructor who questioned whether twins should serve in the same unit. That is not what happened, Maya said firmly. Staff Sergeant Vaughn targeted me and my sister from day one of training because we are women. He sabotaged our equipment, accessed sealed foster care records to find psychological vulnerabilities, filed false complaints, and systematically attempted to force us to quit. His concern about twins serving together was a pretext for gender discrimination. Morrison smiled. Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her documentation notebook. I have a detailed record of every incident over 8 weeks of training. Dates, times, witnesses, specific actions taken. The lieutenant colonel on the panel leaned forward. May I see that? Maya handed it across. The panel passed it between them, reading in silence. Morrison's confidence wavered slightly. The questioning continued for an hour. Morrison tried every angle. He suggested Maya was bitter about difficult training. He implied she was manufacturing claims to protect her sister's weaknesses. He questioned her judgment during the civilian rescue. Maya answered every question with calm precision. She did not get angry, did not get defensive, simply stated facts with the weight of truth behind them. When Morrison finally dismissed her, the lieutenant colonel spoke for the first time. Corporal Chun, one question from the panel. Why did you stay? Why not request a transfer when Staff Sergeant Vaughn first demonstrated bias? Maya met his eyes. Because transferring would have proven his point, sir. That women cannot handle infantry. That we quit when things get hard. I stayed because someone needs to prove he is wrong. And because if I left, he would have destroyed the next woman who showed promise. The colonel nodded. You were dismissed. Maya walked out. Riley was called immediately after. Maya sat with the other witnesses and waited. Through the closed door, she heard Riley's voice, steady and clear, telling her own version of the same story. Torres went third. Then Jennifer Park. Park was shaking when she went in. When she emerged 40 minutes later, she was crying. But her spine was straight. You try to make me say I was weak, Park said. That I quit because I could not handle real training. I told him I quit because Vaughn convinced me I was worthless. That I was endangering Marines just by existing. That every day I woke up wishing I was dead. She wiped her eyes. I told them about the night I sat in my barracks with my service pistol, trying to decide if the Corps would be better off without me. The room went silent. Riley grabbed Park's hand. One by one, the other witnesses testified. Each woman told a variation of the same story. Exceptional performance followed by systematic destruction. Impossible standards. Public humiliation. Manufactured failures. The slow erosion of confidence until quitting seemed like the only option. The hearing lasted 6 hours. When the last witness finished, the panel dismissed everyone for deliberation. Maya and Riley walked outside with the other women. The sun was setting over Camp Lejeune. They had all testified. They had all told their truth. Now they waited. Torres joined them an hour later. He had stayed to observe the final arguments. Reeves presented your documentation. Every incident you recorded. She also presented personnel records showing 14 women who transferred out of combat roles after training under Vaughn. The pattern was undeniable. And Vaughn? Maya asked. Morrison argued that Vaughn is old school, that his methods are harsh but effective, that the standards he applied were legitimate even if they were selectively enforced. He claimed every woman who failed under Vaughn did so because they were genuinely unsuited for infantry, not because of bias. Will it work? Riley asked. Torres shook his head. The panel was not buying it, especially after Park's testimony. When she described sitting with her pistol, the captain on the panel looked like she wanted to climb across the table and strangle Vaughn herself. They sat in silence as night fell. Other Marines walked past, heading to Chow or the barracks or Liberty. Normal life continuing while their futures hung in balance. Jennifer Park sat down beside Maya. I need to thank you, both of you. I spent 6 years believing I was the problem, that I was weak, that Vaughn was right about me. Today was the first time I said out loud what really happened. The first time I admitted I was not the failure. He was. You were never the failure, Riley said. Park smiled sadly. I know that now, but I needed to see you too. Needed to see women who survived him, but did not break. It gave me the strength to face him again. The notification came the next morning. The panel had reached a decision. All witnesses were invited to attend the reading of findings. Maya and Riley dressed in their service uniforms with shaking hands. The hearing room was packed. All the witnesses, Staff Sergeant Cross, Lieutenant Fisher, Marines from their platoon. Major Reeves sat at her table with an expression Maya could not read. Vaughn sat with Morrison, his face carved from stone. The lieutenant colonel stood. After careful review of testimony and evidence, this panel finds that Staff Sergeant Derek Vaughn engaged in a pattern of discriminatory behavior toward female Marines that violated regulations and damaged unit cohesion. He paused. The panel recommends discharge under other than honorable conditions, forfeiture of all benefits, and reduction in rank to private. The room erupted. Women were crying. Torres was grinning. Cross looked vindicated. Vaughn's face went white, then red. He stood abruptly. This is a witch hunt. These women conspired against me because I held them to the same standards as men. Morrison put a hand on his arm, but Vaughn shook him off. His voice rose. I gave 15 years to this corps. I deployed 4 times. I earned every commendation, every promotion. And you're going to destroy me because I refuse to pretend weak Marines are strong just because they are women? The lieutenant colonel's voice was ice. Staff Sergeant Vaughn, you have the right to appeal this decision. Until then, you are dismissed from this hearing and confined to base pending final disposition. 2 MPs appeared at the door. Vaughn stared at them, then at the panel, then at the women gathered in the back of the room. His eyes found Maya and Riley. This is not over, he said quietly. His voice carried threat and promise in equal measure. The MPs escorted him out. The door closed. The room slowly emptied until only Maya, Riley, Torres, and Reeves remained. Reeves gathered her files. You did well. All of you. You told the truth, and the truth was enough. What happens now? Maya asked. Now he appeals, Reeves said. The process will take months. But the panel's recommendation carries significant weight. It is highly unlikely he will be reinstated. She paused. However, until the final order is issued, stay vigilant. Vaughn is dangerous when cornered. Is that a warning? Riley asked. That is experience, Reeves said. Men like Vaughn do not go quietly. They burn everything on their way down. They left the building and walked across base in silence. The weight of testimony, of confrontation, of finally facing their destroyer settled over them like exhaustion. Riley spoke first. We did it. Not yet, Maya said. Not until the final order. But soon, Torres said. Soon he will be gone, and you can just be Marines. Maya looked at her sister. They had survived Vaughn. They had testified. They had helped expose a 15-year pattern of abuse. But Reeves's warning echoed in her mind. Vaughn was confined to base, but not in custody. He was angry and humiliated and dangerous. The war was not over yet. Training graduation was scheduled for Friday, 3 days after the hearing. 3 days during which Vaughn remained confined to base, filing his appeal and watching the world that had defined him for 15 years crumble around him. Maya felt his presence like a physical weight. She saw him twice, once standing outside the commissary, staring at nothing, once walking the perimeter fence at dawn. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, but no less dangerous. Lieutenant Fisher called her and Riley into his office Thursday morning. Staff Sergeant Cross was already there. The lieutenant's expression was grave. "I received a call from Major Reeves this morning," Fisher said. "Vaughn has been making phone calls, reaching out to former students, other NCOs, building support for his appeal." She paused. "He also called his ex-wife." "Sarah Vaughn?" Cross asked. Fisher nodded. She reported it immediately. He told her this was her fault, that if she had been a proper wife instead of trying to compete with him, none of this would have happened. He said she destroyed his life, and he was going to make sure everyone knew what she really was. "Classic abuser behavior," Cross said quietly, blaming everyone else for his failures. "It gets worse," Fisher continued. "He has also been accessing training schedules through the admin system. His credentials have not been fully revoked yet. He knows where you two will be for every remaining training evolution." Maya felt ice in her stomach. "He's planning something." "Reeves believes so," Fisher said. "She has requested increased security presence during your final training exercises. I have also authorized Cross to modify your schedule to include unpredictable elements. If Vaughn is watching, he should not be able to anticipate your movements." "What about just removing him from base?" Riley asked. "He has not violated the terms of his confinement," Fisher said. "He is allowed to remain on base pending final disposition of his case. Unless he makes an explicit threat or attempts contact with witnesses, there is no legal basis to remove him." "So we train with a target on our backs," Maya said. "You train with enhanced security," Fisher corrected. "But yes, remain vigilant." The final training evolution began Friday morning at 0500, a 12-hour field exercise combining everything they had learned: land navigation, tactical movement, simulated combat scenarios, and a final objective that would test leadership under pressure. Maya's fire team loaded into trucks with Torres and 3 other Marines. Riley's team took a different route. Cross had deliberately separated them to prevent Vaughn from targeting both simultaneously. The exercise area was dense pine forest 20 miles from main base. Perfect cover for ambush training. Perfect cover for other things, too. Maya's team reached their first checkpoint at 0700. They were ahead of schedule. The forest was quiet except for wind in the trees and distant sounds of other teams moving through their routes. Torres took point. Maya covered their 6. The other 3 Marines spread out in tactical formation. They moved through undergrowth with practice silence. At 0830, Maya's radio crackled. "All teams be advised. Unidentified individual spotted in training area. Not part of exercise. All teams halt and report positions." Maya's team leader, Corporal James, responded immediately with their coordinates. They took cover and waited. The radio came alive again 5 minutes later. Cross's voice, tight with controlled urgency. "Team 2, report status." Team 2 was Riley's team. Maya felt her heart rate spike. Static. Then Riley's voice. "Team 2, all present and accounted for. We have visual on unidentified individual. Male, approximately 50 yards north of our position, moving parallel to our route. Do not engage," Cross ordered. "Maintain observation and continue mission. Security is responding to your location." Maya wanted to abandon her position and run to Riley. Every instinct screamed to protect her sister. But she forced herself to remain in cover, to trust Riley's team, to follow orders. Her team leader made the decision for her. "Chin, you are with me. Rest of team, hold position." James moved through the forest toward Team 2's coordinates. Maya followed. They covered the distance in 8 minutes of hard movement. Found Riley's team in defensive positions, watching a figure moving through the trees ahead of them. Maya recognized the walk before she saw the face. Vaughn. He was in civilian clothes, no longer in uniform. He moved with purpose, tracking something. Tracking Riley's team. James radioed the sighting. "Security is 3 minutes out." The response came back. Do not engage unless threatened. Vaughn stopped walking. He stood perfectly still, as if sensing he was being watched. Then he turned and looked directly at the position where Riley's team was concealed. "I know you were there," he called out. His voice carried clearly through the quiet forest. "You think you won. You think destroying my career makes you right." He started walking toward their position. "But you have not won anything. You have just proven exactly what I said from the beginning. Women in combat are emotional liabilities who put personal relationships above mission." Riley's team remained silent and hidden. Maya could see her sister's position from where she crouched with James. Riley's weapon was steady, trained on Vaughn's center mass. Vaughn kept walking, kept talking. 15 years I gave to the Corps. 15 years making real Marines out of weak recruits. And you destroyed it because I hurt your feelings. Because I held you to actual standards instead of participating in the lie that women can do this job. He was 20 yards from Riley's position now, close enough that Maya could see his face. The rage, the contempt, the absolute conviction that he was right. "Your sister is watching right now," Vaughn said. He had somehow spotted Maya's position. "She is thinking about abandoning her team to protect you. That is what you do. That is what you have always done. Put each other above the mission, above other Marines, above everything." He was right. Maya was calculating whether she could reach Riley before Vaughn did, whether she could put herself between her sister and whatever Vaughn planned. James put a hand on her arm. "Hold position," he whispered. Two Humvees crashed through the forest. MPs poured out with weapons drawn. On the ground, one shouted, "Hand where we can see them." Vaughn stopped walking. He raised his hand slowly. His eyes never left Riley's concealed position. "See?" he called out. "Exactly as I predicted. The moment one of you is threatened, the other abandoned her mission. Emotional liability. Proven. I did not abandon anything." Maya shouted back before she could stop herself. "My team leader made a tactical decision to reinforce an undermanned unit facing unknown threat. That is proper infantry doctrine." Vaughn laughed. "Keep telling yourself that, Corporal. Keep pretending your relationship makes you stronger. But we both know the truth. When the bullets are real and one of you is bleeding out, you will choose each other over the mission. You will get good Marines killed." The MPs moved in to detain him. Vaughn did not resist, but he kept talking. "You have not changed anything. The Corps will always need warriors, not social experiments. And one day, on some battlefield, you two will prove me right." They cuffed him and led him away. Cross arrived moments later with additional security. She checked both teams, verified everyone was safe, then ordered them to continue the exercise. Maya and Riley's teams merged as planned for the final objective. They moved through the forest in silence, processing what had just happened. Torres fell into step beside Maya. "He was trying to provoke you, trying to make you react so he could claim you proved his point." "He did provoke me," Maya said. "I wanted to shoot him." "But you did not," Torres said. "You held position. You followed orders. You did exactly what a Marine is supposed to do." The final objective was a simulated hostage rescue. 2 buildings, unknown number of enemy combatants, time, critical mission. The kind of scenario that required perfect coordination and split-second decisions. Maya and Riley cleared the first building together, moving room to room with practiced efficiency, trusting each other completely. When Riley went through a door, Maya knew exactly where she would position herself. When Maya called out contact, Riley knew exactly how to respond. They secured the hostages in 4 minutes. 0 casualties. Perfect execution. Cross was waiting outside. She looked at them both with something approaching awe. That was textbook. That was the kind of fire-team coordination most Marines spend years trying to achieve. "We have had 18 years of practice," Riley said. That evening, the platoon gathered for final formation before graduation. Fisher addressed them with pride, talking about their accomplishments and their futures as infantry Marines. Maya barely heard it. She was thinking about Vaughn's words, about the accusation that they would choose each other over the mission, about whether he was right. After formation, Major Reeves found them. Vaughn has been removed from base and placed in military detention pending final disposition of his case. His access to all facilities has been revoked. He will not be at your graduation. Good, Riley said. Reeves looked at them both seriously. What he did today was a violation of his confinement terms. It will be added to his case. But I need you to understand something. He wanted to prove you would react emotionally. He wanted evidence to support his appeal. Did we give it to him? Maya asked. Reeves shook her head. You held position. You followed orders. You completed your mission despite the distraction. You proved the exact opposite of what he claimed. She paused. The final order came down this afternoon. Vaughn's discharge is confirmed. Reduction to private, dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all benefits. He is done. Maya felt something release in her chest. It is over. Almost, Reeves said. He has 30 days to clear the base and complete out processing. But he will never wear the uniform again. He will never train another Marine. And his discharge paperwork will follow him for the rest of his life. Riley grabbed Maya's hand. We won. You survived, Reeves corrected. That is the real victory. Winning would have been never having to fight him in the first place. Graduation was Saturday morning. Maya and Riley stood in formation with their platoon as the sun rose over Camp Lejeune. They received their certificates. They were officially infantry Marines. Jennifer Park was in the audience. So were the other women who had testified. They stood when Maya and Riley's names were called, a silent show of solidarity. Torres graduated third in the class. Maya and Riley graduated first and second. Staff Sergeant Cross shook their hands. You two are going to do great things in the Corps. Do not let anyone tell you different. As formation dismissed, Maya saw a figure standing at the edge of the parade deck. For one heart-stopping moment, she thought it was Vaughn. Then the person moved, and she saw it was just another Marine. Vaughn was gone, really gone. The monster who had haunted them for months was defeated. But his words still echoed. One day, on some battlefield, you will prove me right. Maya looked at Riley. Her twin, her anchor, the person she would absolutely choose over any mission. Maybe Vaughn was right about that. Maybe when the moment came, they would choose each other. But maybe that was not weakness. Maybe that was what made them unbreakable. The deployment orders arrived 1 week after graduation. Maya opened the envelope in the barracks with Riley looking over her shoulder. 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. Forward deployment to training mission, Romania. 6-month rotation. Report date in 3 weeks. Riley opened her identical envelope. Same orders. Same unit. Same deployment. They had done it. They were deploying together as infantry Marines. Torres appeared in the doorway. Let me guess. Romania. Maya showed him the orders. You too? Torres grinned. Whole fire team stays together. Just like we earned. The 3 weeks before deployment passed in a blur of preparation. Medical checks, equipment issue, training refreshers, family notifications. Maya and Riley had no family to notify. The emergency contact line on their forms listed each other. Lieutenant Fisher called them to his office on their final day at Camp Lejeune. He had something in his hand. A letter. This arrived for you both. From Sandra Martinez's mother. Maya took the letter carefully. The envelope was worn, as if it had been carried for a long time before being mailed. She opened it and read aloud. Dear Corporals Chun, my daughter Sandra told me about the Marine Corps in her letters home. She loved it with her whole heart. She wanted to be the kind of Marine who made a difference. When Staff Sergeant Vaughn destroyed that dream, she had nothing left to hold on to. I blamed the Corps for taking my daughter. I blamed Sandra for not being stronger. I blamed everyone except the man responsible. Major Reeves contacted me last month. She told me about the hearing, about your testimony, about how you survived what my daughter could not. She told me that Vaughn will never hurt another woman because you refused to break. I wanted you to know that Sandra would be proud of you. I wanted you to know that her death was not meaningless if it helped bring him down. Thank you for being strong enough to finish what she started. Maria Martinez. Riley wiped her eyes. We should have known her. We should have been able to save her. You were 18 and homeless when she died, Fisher said gently. You could not have saved her, but you honored her by surviving, by fighting, by making sure her story mattered. Maya folded the letter carefully and put it in her pocket. She would keep it, a reminder of why they fought, a reminder of the cost of silence. The night before they flew out, Jennifer Park organized a gathering at a restaurant off base. All the women who had testified came. Cross came. Torres came. Even Major Reeves appeared for an hour. Park stood and raised her glass. To the Chun twins. For being stubborn enough to survive that bastard. For giving the rest of us the courage to face him. For proving that we were never the problem. Everyone drank. Maya felt the weight of their gratitude and their expectations. These women saw her and Riley as symbols. As proof that fighting back could work. As heroes. But Maya did not feel heroic. She felt lucky. Lucky that she had Riley. Lucky that Torres stood by them. Lucky that Reeves built the case. Lucky that the panel believed them. Sandra Martinez had none of that luck. Neither did the 14 other women who quit. They were just as strong, just as capable. They were simply alone when it mattered most. Reeves pulled Maya aside before leaving. I wanted to tell you something. Vaughn's discharge is final. He cleared base yesterday. He is gone. Where'd he go? Maya asked. I do not know, Reeves said. I do not care. What matters is that he is no longer in a position to hurt anyone. She paused. But I also want to warn you. Men like Vaughn do not change. They blame. They obsess. They nurture grievances. Do not be surprised if you hear from him again someday. You think he will come after us? I think he will spend the rest of his life believing he was right and you were wrong, Reeves said. Whether that translates to action, I cannot predict. Just stay aware. The flight to Romania took 18 hours. Maya sat between Riley and Torres in the cargo hold of a C-17, surrounded by other Marines heading to the same deployment. Most slept. Some played cards. A few stared at nothing, processing the reality of deploying for the first time. Maya thought about the journey that brought her here. From that bus station at 18 with $17 and nowhere to go. Through the streets and shelters and violence. Through boot camp and infantry training. Through Vaughn's systematic attempt to destroy them. Every step had been a fight. Every victory had come with cost. But they were here. They were Marines. They were deploying together. Riley leaned her head on Maya's shoulder. You think about it sometimes? Where our lives would have been if we had not joined. Maya nodded, probably still on the streets. Or dead. Or broken by whatever came after the streets. We made the right choice, Riley said. The best choice, Maya agreed. They landed at Mikhail Kogalnicino Air Base in Romania at 0600 local time. The landscape was flat farmland stretching to distant mountains. The base was a joint NATO facility, crawling with American, Romanian, and Allied forces. Their unit was tasked with training Romanian infantry on urban warfare tactics, teaching what they had learned, sharing skills across Allied forces. It was not combat deployment, but it was real mission with real purpose. Lieutenant Fisher, who had deployed with them as their platoon commander, briefed them on arrival. This is a training mission, but treat it like combat. These Romanian soldiers are our allies. They deserve our best. They deserve Marines who know what they are doing and can teach effectively. Over the following weeks, Maya and Riley proved themselves as instructors. They taught room clearing, fire team movement, tactical communications. The Romanian soldiers responded well to them, especially the women in their ranks who saw the Chun twins as proof that female infantry could excel. Torres became their unofficial translator and liaison, his natural charm bridging cultural gaps. The three of them developed a reputation as the fire team everyone wanted to train with. 2 months into deployment, Maya was leading a training exercise when a Romanian lieutenant approached her after. You and your sister, he said in accented English. You moved together like one person. How long did it take to develop that coordination? 18 years, Maya said. The lieutenant laughed, thinking she was joking. Then he saw her expression. You are serious? You trained together since children? We survived together since we were born, Maya said. The Marine Corps just gave us better tools. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters writing in her notebook. She had continued documenting everything, a habit formed during Vaughn's persecution that she could not seem to break. But now she documented different things. Training successes, Romanian soldiers who excelled, the small moments that made deployment meaningful. Riley came in and sat on her bunk. Torres just told me something interesting. One of the Romanian female soldiers asked him if we were together. Like together. Maya laughed. What did he say? That we are sisters and that Americans take family bonds seriously. Riley smiled. But it made me think. People keep assuming our relationship must be romantic because they cannot understand why two women would be this close otherwise. Or they cannot imagine siblings caring about each other this much, Maya said. Most people do not have what we have. Most people were not thrown away at 18 and forced to become each other's entire world, Riley said. Her voice was soft. Sometimes I wonder if we are too close. If Vaughn was right that we cannot function independently. You operated independently for 3 days during field training, Maya reminded her. You excelled without me there. Riley nodded. But I thought about you the entire time. Every decision I made, I wondered what you would do. Every risk I took, I calculated whether you would approve. That is not codependence, Maya said. That is having someone whose judgment you trust. Soldiers do that with their team leaders all the time. But team leaders change, Riley said. We never will. You will always be my first thought, my first priority, my first everything. Maya understood what her sister was really saying. You are scared that when it matters, I will choose you over the mission. Are not you? Riley asked. Maya thought about the forest, about Vaughn stalking Riley's team, about the overwhelming instinct to abandon her position and protect her sister, about how close she came to proving Vaughn right. Yes, Maya admitted. I'm scared of that too. They sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the base hummed with activity. Helicopters landing, vehicles moving, soldiers training. The sound of a military installation at full operation. Maybe Vaughn was right about us, Riley said quietly. Maybe we are an emotional liability. Or maybe, Maya said, we are exactly what the Corps needs. Fire teams that trust each other completely, that would die for each other, that fight harder because they have something worth protecting. You really believe that? Maya thought about Torres taking a bullet for either of them without hesitation. About Cross coming back to the Corps to fight for women she had never met. About all the Marines throughout history who fought not for abstract ideals, but for the person next to them. I believe the best warriors fight for love, Maya said. Love of country, love of Corps, love of the people beside them. Our love just happens to be deeper and older than most. Riley grabbed her hand. Promise me something. If the choice comes, if it is ever me or the mission, you choose the mission. Maya looked at her twin sister, the person she had protected and been protected by for 18 years. The person who knew her completely. The person she would absolutely choose over any mission, any order, any cause. You promise? Maya lied. Riley smiled like she knew it was a lie. Good, because I just made the same promise to you, and we both know I am lying too. They laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from shared understanding, from knowing each other well enough to see through comfortable lies. 3 months remained on their deployment. 3 months of training Allied forces and proving themselves as Marines. 3 months of building the reputation that would follow them through their careers. But Maya knew that eventually the choice would come. The moment Vaughn predicted. The battlefield where they would have to choose between each other and the mission. And when that moment came, Maya knew exactly what she would choose. She would choose Riley. Every time. Without hesitation. Maybe that made them liabilities. Maybe that made them exactly what Vaughn claimed. Or maybe that made them unbreakable. Only time would tell. 4 months into deployment, Maya received an email from Major Reeves. The subject line reads simply, "Thought you should know." The message was brief. Derek Vaughn was found dead in his apartment in Jacksonville, North Carolina, 3 days ago. Apparent suicide. Single gunshot wound. He left no note. The investigation is closed. I wanted you to hear it from me rather than through rumors. He did not cause this. His choices were his own. Major E. Reeves. Maya read it 3 times before showing Riley. Her sister stared at the screen without speaking for a full minute. Good, Riley finally said. Then she walked out of the communications tent. Maya found her an hour later, sitting on the edge of the flight line, watching C-130S land and take off. She sat beside her sister in silence. I should feel something, Riley said. Relief or guilt or satisfaction. Something. But I just feel empty. He spent 15 years destroying people, Maya said. When that was taken away, he had nothing left. Riley nodded. Do you think he blamed us? At the end? Maya thought about Vaughn's face in the forest. The absolute conviction that he was right. The refusal to accept responsibility. I think he blamed everyone except himself. They sat watching aircraft until the sun set. When they returned to their quarters, Torres was waiting. Heard the news, he said quietly. You two okay? We survived him, Maya said. That has to be enough. The deployment continued. Training exercises, cultural exchanges, the daily rhythm of military life abroad. But something had shifted. Vaughn's death had closed a chapter neither Maya nor Riley realized was still open. 2 weeks later, Lieutenant Fisher called the platoon together for an announcement. We have been tasked with a joint operation. Romanian Special Forces requested our assistance with a live-fire exercise simulating urban counterterrorism operations. This is an honor. It means our training has impressed them enough to include us in advanced operations. The exercise was scheduled for the following week. 6 American Marines working with 12 Romanian Special Forces operators. Maya, Riley, and Torres were selected for the American contingent. The scenario was complex. Hostages held in a multi-story building. Unknown number of hostile combatants. Time-critical mission with civilian casualties if they failed. The kind of operation that tested everything they had learned. The morning of the exercise, Cross appeared at the briefing. She had flown in from Lejeune specifically to observe. She pulled Maya and Riley aside before mission start. This is what you have been training for, Cross said. This is where you prove that everything you survived made you better, not broken. She paused. I want you to know something. I spent 4 years after Vaughn convinced I was worthless, that I had failed, that I did not belong in the Corps. Watching you two succeed gave me the courage to come back. You saved me just like you saved those other women. Do not forget that. Maya felt the weight of expectation. Everyone was watching, waiting to see if the Chun twins could perform under real pressure. The exercise began at dawn. The building was a condemned structure on the outskirts of the base, perfect for destructive training. Romanian role players acted as hostages and enemies. Live ammunition in controlled scenarios. Real risk. Real stakes. Maya's fire team took the north entrance. Riley's team secured the south. Torres was with Maya. The plan was simultaneous breach and systematic clearing. They entered on signal. The building was dark, smoke grenades creating confusion. Maya moved through the first floor with practiced precision. Room by room, checking corners, covering angles. Torres moved in perfect sync with her. Second floor, more complex. Narrow hallways, multiple rooms. Sounds of Riley's team on the opposite side of the structure. Maya heard it before she saw it. A ceiling panel giving way. A Romanian role player dropping directly onto Torres, simulating ambush. Torres went down hard, the role player's weight driving him into the floor. The role player wore a vest marked enemy wounded. The scenario, Torres was injured, enemy combatant neutralized but blocking their path. Decision required under time pressure. Maya assessed instantly. Torres was down but conscious. The enemy role player was intentionally blocking the hallway. She could help Torres, or she could continue the mission. She stepped over both of them and continued clearing. Behind her, Torres laughed through his groan of pain. Good choice, Chun. Maya cleared 3 more rooms. Found 2 hostage role players. Secured them. Called for medic support for Torres. Continued mission. Riley's voice came over radio. South wing clear. 4 hostages secured. Advancing to objective. Maya's team reached the final room simultaneously with Riley's team from opposite entrances. Inside was the primary objective. A simulated bomb that needed to be defused. Time limit, 3 minutes. Riley moved to the device. Maya secured the perimeter. They worked without speaking. Riley's hands moved with confidence over the simulated components. Maya watched the entrances, ready for final attack. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 30 seconds. Device defused. Mission complete. The role players dropped their weapons. The observers emerged. The Romanian Special Forces commander approached with an expression of genuine respect. "That was exceptional," he said in English. "Your coordination, your decision-making under pressure, your willingness to prioritize mission over casualties. That is what we train for." Cross approached Maya. "You left Torres. He was wounded but secure," Maya said. "Continuing mission was correct tactical decision." Cross smiled. It was hard. That makes it the right choice for the right reasons." Riley joined them, stripping off her gear. "We did it without hesitation, without second-guessing." "You did it like Marines," Cross said. "Like infantry Marines who understand that the mission comes first." That evening, the American and Romanian teams celebrated together. Torres, who had only bruised his ribs in the fall, raised his beer. "To the Chun twins, for proving that family bonds do not weaken infantry. They strengthen it." The Romanian commander agreed. "In my country, we say the best soldiers fight for something bigger than themselves. You two fight for each other and for the mission. That is rare." Maya looked at Riley across the table. They had done it. They had faced the choice Vaughn predicted, and they had chosen correctly. They had proven they could function as Marines first, sisters second. Except Maya knew the truth. Torres had never been in real danger. The scenario was controlled. The stakes were training points, not lives. The real test had not come yet. 2 weeks before the end of deployment, Maya and Riley were called to Lieutenant Fisher's office. He had papers on his desk. "Orders. You have both been recommended for meritorious promotion to sergeant," Fisher said. "Based on your performance here and your training scores at Lejeune, you will pin rank upon return to the States." Riley grabbed Maya's hand under the desk. Fisher continued. "You have also been nominated for the Marine Corps Instructor of the Year Award for your work training Romanian forces." The nomination came from the Romanian Special Forces commander himself. Maya felt something unfamiliar. Pride without the shadow of Vaughn's contempt. Success without the weight of proving doubters wrong. Just recognition earned through competence. "There's one more thing," Fisher said. He slid an envelope across the desk. "This arrived for you both. From Jennifer Park." Maya opened it. Inside was a photograph. Park stood in dress blues at a recruiting station. Beneath it, a note. "I re-enlisted. I'm going back to infantry. Because you two proved I was not the failure Vaughn was. Thank you for giving me my dream back. Jennifer Park, Corporal, USMC." Riley wiped her eyes. "She's coming back. Because you survived," Fisher said. "Because you proved it was possible." That night, Maya sat on her bunk, writing in her notebook. She documented the day's training, the successful defusal, Torres's injury and her decision to continue mission, the promotions and awards. Then she wrote something else, a question she could not answer. If Torres had been really dying, would I have made the same choice? If Riley was bleeding out and the mission required me to leave her, could I do it? She did not know. She hoped she would never have to find out. Riley climbed into bed across from her. "What are you writing?" "The truth," Maya said, "that we are good Marines, that we can perform under pressure, that we have proven ourselves over and over. And that Vaughn's question still haunts me," Maya admitted, "because I do not know the answer." Riley was quiet for a moment. Maybe that is okay. Maybe not knowing means we take each situation as it comes instead of deciding in advance what we would do. Or maybe it means we are lying to ourselves, Maya said, pretending we would choose the mission when we both know we would choose each other. Riley smiled sadly. "Then we are liars who happen to be excellent Marines. I can live with that." Maya closed her notebook. In 2 weeks, they would return to the States. They would pin sergeant rank. They would continue their careers as infantry Marines. They would train more soldiers. They would deploy again. They would face more tests. And someday, maybe, they would face the test Vaughn predicted. The moment where love and duty collided with no good choice available. But tonight, they had survived another day. They had completed another mission. They had proven themselves again. Cross found them the next morning during PT. She ran alongside them in silence for a mile before speaking. "I have been asked to create a program," she said, "training female Marines for infantry roles. Mentorship, support, making sure what happened to me and Martinez and the others never happens again." She paused. I want you two to be part of it when you get back. Help me build something that protects the next generation." Maya and Riley exchanged glances. It was the logical next step, using their survival to help others. "We are in," Maya said. "Good," Cross said. "Because we're going to change this core. We're going to make it the place it was supposed to be all along. Where competence matters more than gender. Where strength is recognized regardless of who carries it." They finished the run, stretched together, headed to morning formation. Maya thought about Sandra Martinez, about the 14 other women who left the Corps because Vaughn broke them, about Jennifer Park coming back, about all the women who would come after them. Their survival had meaning beyond themselves. Their fight had opened doors. Their refusal to quit had changed something fundamental. Vaughn had spent 15 years trying to prove women did not belong in infantry. His death had closed that chapter permanently. But his legacy lived on in every woman he destroyed. Maya and Riley's legacy would be different. They would build instead of destroy, protect instead of harm, lift instead of push down. They had been kicked out at 18 with nothing. The battlefield had given them a reason to stand. Now they would make sure others had the same chance. The deployment ended 2 weeks later. They flew home to Camp Lejeune as sergeants, as instructors, as Marines who had proven themselves in every way that mattered. The fight was not over. It would never be over. But they had won the battle that mattered most. They had survived. And in surviving, they had changed everything. 6 months after returning from Romania, Sergeant Maya Chun stood in front of 20 female Marines at the new Women in Infantry Leadership Program. Staff Sergeant Linda Cross stood beside her. Sergeant Riley Chun was conducting practical exercises outside with another group. "This program exists because women before you fought battles you will never see," Maya said. They faced instructors who wanted them to fail, systems designed to break them, standards applied unfairly to prove they did not belong. Some of them survived. Many did not. She held up the photograph of Sandra Martinez that Major Reeves had given her. This Marine loved the Corps with everything she had. An instructor named Derek Vaughn convinced her she was worthless, that she endangered other Marines just by existing. She took her own life 3 years ago because she believed his lies. The female Marines in the classroom were silent, their faces serious. Maya continued, "You will face people like Vaughn. They might not be as obvious. They might hide behind concern or tradition or claims of maintaining standards. But they will try to make you quit. They will try to prove you do not belong." She paused. "This program is here to make sure you have what we did not. Support, mentorship, proof that women have excelled in every role we have been given the chance to fill." Cross stepped forward. "The difference between surviving and breaking is often just knowing you're not alone, that others have walked this path, that your struggles are not because you are weak, but because the system was designed to be harder for you." After the class, Maya walked to the training field where Riley was running combat drills. Her sister had the Marines low-crawling under barbed wire while simulated machine gun fire cracked overhead. Riley barked corrections and encouragement in equal measure. Torres jogged up beside Maya. He had made sergeant as well and was assigned to the instructor cadre. "How did the classroom session go?" Maya watched Riley push a struggling Marine to keep moving when she wanted to quit. "It went well. They are hungry. They want to prove themselves. They will," Torres said, "with you two showing them it is possible." Jennifer Park appeared from the administrative building. She had completed her re-enlistment processing and was assigned to the next infantry course. She wore her uniform with the same pride Maya remembered from before Vaughn broke her. Park approached them with a tablet. "I've been going through old training records. Did you know there have been 63 women who started infantry training in the past 5 years?" She showed them the data. Only 12 graduated. The dropout rate for men in the same period was 15%. For women, it was 80%. Maya studied the numbers. How many had Vaughn as an instructor? Park scrolled through the data. 41 out of 63. And of those 41, only 2 graduated. She looked up. "You too." Every other woman who trained under him either dropped out or was recycled until they quit. The scope of his damage was staggering. 39 women, pushed out of a career they wanted. 13 dreams destroyed by one bitter man. This is why the program matters, Cross said, joining them. Every woman in those statistics deserve better. We cannot give them back what they lost, but we can make sure it does not happen to the next generation. That evening, Maya and Riley sat in their shared apartment off base. They had saved enough for a small place, nothing fancy, but it was theirs, a far cry from the streets of Los Angeles. Riley cooked, while Maya reviewed lesson plans for the next day's training. The domestic normalcy felt surreal after everything they had been through. Do you ever think about what our lives would be if we had taken a different path? Riley asked. Maya looked up from her papers. What other path was there? We had nothing. The Corps gave us everything. Riley brought plates to the table. What if we had found other work? Construction or security or anything else? What if we had never joined? Maya thought about it. We would probably still be struggling, still looking over our shoulders, still defined by what we survived instead of what we accomplished. Riley nodded. The Marines gave us more than a career. It gave us a purpose bigger than ourselves. They ate in comfortable silence. Through the window, Maya could see other Marines from the base heading into town for liberty. Young men and women at the start of their journeys. Some would excel. Some would struggle. Some would face their own versions of Derek Vaughn. But now there was a support system. Now there were Sergeants Chun who understood. Now there was proof that survival was possible. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Major Reeves called into her office at 0700. She had been promoted to lieutenant colonel and now ran the entire infantry training program at Lejeune. Reeves gestured for them to sit. I received a request from Headquarters Marine Corps. They want to expand the Women in Infantry Leadership program to every training base in the Corps. They want you two to help design the curriculum and train the instructors. It was the opportunity Maya had been working toward without realizing it. A chance to change the system that had nearly broken them. To build something that would outlast their individual careers. Where do we start? Riley asked. Reeves smiled. You already have. Your work here is the proof of concept. Now we scale it. Over the following months, Maya and Riley traveled to every major Marine Corps installation. They met with commanders. They trained instructors. They shared their story and the lessons learned from surviving Vaughn. At Paris Island, they stood where Sandra Martinez had once stood, where Vaughn had begun destroying her confidence before she ever reached infantry training. Maya placed a small memorial stone at the recruit training ground with Martinez's name and the words, "She belonged here." At Camp Pendleton, they met with a class of female recruits who had heard about the Chun twins and asked 1,000 questions. What was it like being underestimated? How did you handle the pressure? What do you do when you want to quit? Maya answered honestly. You remember why you started. You lean on the people who believe in you. And you understand that proving yourself is not a one-time event. It is every single day. At Quantico, they briefed senior leadership on the program's success. The dropout rate for women in infantry training had fallen from 80% to 35% in just 1 year. The quality of graduates had increased across the board. A general asked the question Maya had been waiting for. Do you believe women can perform at the same level as men in combat infantry roles? Maya met his eyes. I believe competent Marines can perform regardless of gender. I believe the Corps benefits from diversity of thought and experience. And I believe the data shows that when women are given fair training and real support, they excel. The general nodded. Then we need more Sergeant Chens in this Corps. 2 years after Vaughn's discharge, the program had grown beyond anything Maya imagined. 73 women graduated infantry training that year. 12 were already deployed to combat zones. 5 had earned commendations for exceptional performance. Jennifer Park was among them. She stood in formation, receiving a meritorious promotion to sergeant for her work as a squad leader in Afghanistan. Maya and Riley watched from the audience as Park was recognized for the same competence Vaughn had tried to convince her she lacked. After the ceremony, Park found them. I deployed with a male Marine who told me women do not belong in infantry, that we are emotional liabilities who will get people killed. Maya felt her jaw tighten. What did you tell him? Park grinned. I told him my instructors were twin sisters who were 2 of the finest Marines in the Corps. and that if he had a problem with women in infantry, he could take it up with them. She paused. He shut up pretty quickly after that. Torres appeared with his fiancée, a Navy corpsman he had met during their Romania deployment. He was being promoted to staff sergeant and transferring to recruiter duty. Going to find the next generation of Chun twins, he said. Going to tell them what is possible when you refuse to quit. That night, Maya stood on the beach at Camp Lejeune watching the Atlantic roll in. Riley joined her, and they stood in silence the way they had 1,000 times before. Do you remember that bus station? Riley asked. When we were 18 and had nothing. Maya remembered. The fluorescent lights. The smell of desperation. The $17 that was supposed to last them until they figured out life. We promised each other we would find a place where we belonged, Maya said. Where strength mattered more than background. Where what we could do was more important than what we had been through. We found it, Riley said. Maya thought about Vaughn. About his absolute conviction that they did not belong. About the 15 years he spent trying to prove women were liabilities instead of assets. About how wrong he had been. We did more than find it, Maya said. We changed it. We made it better for everyone who comes after. If this story moved you, drop a comment about your favorite moment, or share if you have known someone who found their strength through hardship. Maybe you have your own story of proving doubters wrong. Riley grabbed Maya's hand. The same hand she had held in that bus station. The same hand she had held through every fight since. Do you think we would have chosen differently? Riley asked. If we knew how hard it would be? If we knew about Vaughn and the fights and everything we would have to survive? Maya looked at her twin sister. The person who had been beside her through the worst moments of her life. The person who made her stronger just by existing. No, Maya said. I would choose this every time. Choose you. Choose the Corps. Choose the fight. Because look what we built. Around them, the base hummed with activity. Marines training, learning, preparing for the challenges ahead. Some of them women who would have quit without the support system Maya and Riley created. Some of them men who were learning to see female Marines as equals. All of them benefiting from the changes fought for by women who refused to break. The battlefield had given them a reason to stand. Standing had given them a reason to fight. Fighting had given them a purpose bigger than survival. They were no longer the scared 18-year-olds with nowhere to go. They were Sergeant Maya and Sergeant Riley Chun. Infantry Marines. Instructors. Mentors. Proof that survival was possible and success was within reach. Vaughn had tried to prove they were liabilities. Instead, they had become legends. Not because they were perfect, not because they never struggled, but because when every voice told them to quit, they chose to stand. Together, the way they always had, the way they always would. The sun set over Camp Lejeune, painting the sky orange and red. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new Marines to train, new systems to change, new fights to win. But tonight, they stood on the beach where their journey as Marines began. Two sisters who had been kicked out at 18, who grew up hard on streets that did not care if they lived or died, who found purpose in service and strength in each other. The battlefield had not just given them a reason to stand. It had given them a platform to lift others, to change lives, to prove that belonging was not about fitting in. It was about being so undeniably competent that denial became impossible. They had found their place. They had earned their standing. And they would make sure every woman who came after them had the same chance. Maya looked at Riley. Ready for tomorrow? Riley smiled. Always. As long as we face it together. They turned from the ocean and walked back toward base. Toward their future. Toward the work that would define their legacy. Two sisters. Two Marines. Unbreakable.